So I'm hitting go live now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to a really special edition live stream coming to you from all around the world. We got folks on here from almost everywhere. My name's DJ, and I'm super happy and honored. I am not worthy, really, to be hosting this this special live stream all about ABAP on Exercism, and I've got some amazing guests. We'll find out what Exercism is shortly. The fact that you've joined, I guess, I'm hoping you know what ABAP is. But we'll find that as well during the course of this session. Thanks to everybody who's already joined. I can see we've got lots of good mornings and highs and everything from the chat. Good morning to Nico and Spidor and Alexander and Santiago and Niels and Mattia and Hisham and everybody. And I've just realized that I should have made my font a little bit bigger over there because I can't see what's going on. But anyway, it's all fun here. So my name's DJ. I'm going to introduce or get these folks to introduce themselves, and we can get going. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to point to my which way is it? This way. I'm going to point to Lars, and that was a complete fail. Yeah, get you to introduce yourself, Lars, and then point to the next person, please.
Yeah. So happy time zone, everyone, and welcome to the stream. Happy interplanetary rotation state. My name is Lars, and I'm not really sure what ABAP is, but I've worked with ABAP for almost 20 years now, writing custom ABAP code and doing open source ABAP code. And the fun thing about ABAP is there's always something new in ABAP to learn. And now we're bringing something extra new to the world today. And this is no April's Fool. You can try it out today, and it's also been online for the last few days. So we might have some people that have been doing some sneak peeks. Yeah, my name is Lars. Middle name Wam, or just call it Wham, Peterson, or Lars. It doesn't really matter. Just call me something, or Cowboy Lars, or so. I should really get a cowboy hat. Over to Marian, do you have any favorite hats?
Not really some guy who wears hats, so I can't help you with that. But yeah, I'm briefly new in the SAP world. I'm full stack, so I work with UI5. I work with ABAP, mostly UI5, but I'm really interested in ABAP to improve myself there. And then I picked up on Exercism for the tracks to learn myself a bit more about ABAP. And it's a really interesting project. So let's continue with Mark.
Okay, hi. I'm Mark Bernard. After over 20 years with SAP as a chief architect, I decided to quit and follow my passion to code myself. So I'm currently bootstrapping my own business, Mark Bernard Tools. It's all open source and it's all built in ABAP. And while doing that, I came across some of the projects that Lars has started, like ABAP Git and ABAP Lint, and now the Trainspyler that underlies this Exercism website now. And I think it's just a lot of fun, not just building it, but also supporting the community around it. And I think we're, with the help of projects like we're talking about today, I think we're really just getting started with open source and ABAP. If we compare that to other ecosystems in the world, we're really at the beginning of this. But the potential is literally unlimited. With the number of ABAP developers that are out there, we should see not just a few hundred, but thousands of open source projects out there. And sharing more code and the Exercism platform will help support all of that.
Well said.
All right. Now we're going here to Mike. At least I'm pointing on my screen this way.
Could you be on
mute myself? Good morning, all. Well, happy time zone. Yes, my name is Mike Pokraka. So I have also been busy developing ABAP since the 90s and various other languages before that concurrently. And I've just noticed this screen order, the window order is different on the YouTube than on the Zoom. just to give us
keep us on our toes.
Yeah, so yeah, I've been involved in open source projects on and off for a while, and yeah, it's Exercism. I found it's a really good platform. Since getting involved, well, I actually discovered Exercism through this platform, through this project, and I think one of my vices has been that I've gotten too distracted by doing some of the other tracks instead of building the ABAP things. So, and on that note, let me hand over to Thomas is offline. Eric.
Yeah, I think maybe the next person is Eric.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. So my name is Erik Schierbouw. I'm from the Netherlands. I am likely the only person here that doesn't really know how to do ABAP. So I know a lot of language, but I don't do ABAP. But I can, well, what we're going to discuss today, I can change that very easily now, thanks to the great work that has been done by others. I work for Exercism. My official title is Head of Open Source, but I basically do like 4 million different things, including helping other people get their language tracks into shape or even building new language tracks. So this is where I probably come in this meeting. So I think this to the next person.
Yeah, I think that those are we're the 6 that are on the YouTube video, but behind the scenes as well, we have 2 little helpers, Rich and Tom. In the middle of the night, so shout out to Rich and Tom. Say hi to them in the chat if you haven't done already. So welcome, and welcome everybody who's in the chat as well. Thanks all so much for joining. Normally I would sort of read through the names and say hi to everybody, but there's so many people that would be here all day. So I'm going to kick things off, or ask Eric to kick things off, if you don't mind, just giving us an overview of what Exercism is, and maybe you can share your screen, and as you're telling us what Exercism is, you could maybe give us a really brief tour so people can get a feel for what it looks like and what it offers.
Yeah, I can totally do that. So I've now shared my screen. Is it visible? Okay, good. That's the first step. So first of all, Exercism is an open source and completely free website. And its goal is to help you get better at programming. So if you know a little bit of programming, you know a language, but you want to learn a new language, you can do that at Exercism. We have 57 language tracks. You probably can guess at least one of them. And there's a whole different wide variety there. We have like very popular ones like Python and JavaScript, but we also have more niche language tracks like Prolog or NIM that have a smaller community, but are still really interesting languages. So if you go to Exercism, you can also know a language and want to get better at a language. That's also a totally valid use case. So if you want to hone your skills, you can do that too. And the way that you do it is you go to the website, obviously, and then you browse through our language tracks. So there's a ton of them. You will probably immediately notice this track. And then there's this exercises count. So the way that Exercism works is that if you join a track, the way that we get you to learn a language is to have you do these little exercises, sort of like puzzles, where you download some tests, and your goal is to build an implementation that passes all the tests. So once you've done that, you've basically completed the exercise. You can then iterate on it to see if you can perhaps improve it more, or you can go to the next exercise. But the thing that's interesting about Exercism is that you can also request help from someone that's already proficient in the language, which we call mentoring. So you worked on an exercise, you think you have a nice solution, but you're not entirely sure, or you might be stuck, you want to learn a bit more, then you can request mentoring. And that means that someone in the background from our mentoring team will see the request and will join you in a conversation, and then he or she will help you well, with your question. And that's we found that this personal approach is what people really value. So this is a combination of, you can just pick and choose when you want mentoring. If you think, no, this is absolutely brilliant, I've nailed this, you can just continue. But if you think I'd like to dig a little deeper, then you can do mentoring. So let's just see what that looks like. I'm going to log in, so then we can see what a track looks like. You can either create an account with Exercism or log in via GitHub. I prefer the latter. So you see here that there's something called learning mode, which will be interesting in a bit. So I'm going to do C#. I'm a C# programmer mostly. I do a little bit of other tracks too. And if you get to this page, you can see all these checkboxes. All the green ones are the ones that I've completed. The blue ones is where I'm still working on it. And the white ones are the one that I could start working on. So there's a ton of stuff here that I won't go into. But let me just select one exercise. So this is like an introduction, but I can just do two things now. I can either work within the browser, or I can use the CLI to work locally. So we used to only have the CLI. So you install a little small CLI tool called Exercism, and you could do Exercism download and then the track and the exercise. You would get the files locally on your machine. And then you'd solve the exercise on your local machine using all the settings and the IDE that you prefer. This is well, really convenient for most people, because most programmers are familiar with the CLI. They're really attached to their local development setup. But this might not be ideal if you just want to do a quick exercise, or you want to do a new track and you don't want to install like 4 million dependencies on your machine. You just want to try out a language. So for those use cases, we've created an online editor. So I will show the online editor now. On the left side, we have code. Yeah, that's obvious. And on the right side, we have the introduction, which is showing us a little bit of metadata on what is it exactly that we want you to learn. And then there are instructions, and the instructions are basically describing what you need to do. So there are tasks, get a default, I have to build a function, blah, blah, blah. There's a ton of stuff here, and I'm just going to quickly copy in some code. So this is all neatly written. I can click run tests, and what this will do is it will run this implementation against the tests in our infrastructure. So nothing locally involved. I can submit it, and then I've basically can complete the exercise because I'm passing it. I can click on mark complete, etc. And then I would finish it, and I would have it as a checkbox. So this is in general the gist of Exercism. There's tons more to it. I mentioned mentoring, but as not only the website is open source, but all the tracks are open source too. So we completely rely on all our open source contributors for the tracks. And you can, for example, see that here that this exercise has one author, which happens to be me, and 2 contributors. This is an exceptional case, of course. So if you want to get involved in open source, we have a dedicated page that we're going to list a lot of issues that you can just jump in, and you can select difficulty, etc. So if you are experienced Exercism learner, you can probably help with certain tasks better than others. So this is basically what Exercism is about. And we are always on the lookout for new languages. And at some point, somebody suggests, hey, we should do an ABAP track. And we thought, ABAP? What is ABAP? So I did a little bit of Googling, and I found out, oh, it's an actual language. So let's get, let's help. So we're gonna do a little bit of scaffolding, and then it's up to the contributors to actually build out the ABAP track with a little bit of help from me, just some guidance. And this
Fantastic.
is where I think the next stage of this session will come into it.
Brilliant. That's such a great overview. Thanks, Eric. I mean, there are other puzzle exercise style websites out there, but the thing that makes this Exercism site and community special for me, and I think for many others as well, are two things we briefly mentioned already. There's the mentoring side, which is, I think really great, especially for folks coming into the ABAP language. There are so many great folks out there, and now we've got over 1,000 people, signed up for the track. That the possibilities for mentoring is great, but also what you showed just now. It's not just that Exercism and the tracks are open for contribution. There's a positive openness, and you can contribute in a small way, or anything up to a new track way, and everything in between. So that's what makes Exercism, I think, really, really special. Talking of tracks, in fact, some I think, where was it? It was Shailesh on the chat just before when you were showing the tracks, the list of tracks. We have this super advantage that ABAP begins with A, and so it's like first on the list. That's fantastic. Alphabetical order advantage for ABAP, which
SAP
itself is
planned this 50 years ago.
Exactly, they did indeed, and so that's fantastic. So why don't we start to dig in? And I want to ask some questions of the rest of the folks. So if you could please stop sharing your screen, Eric, and that should bring the little videos of us back. So we have the ABAP track. I'm going to pick on Lars as the ABAP cowboy. Apparently, that I'm allowed to say that on this channel, am I? Why don't you tell us, where this whole idea for the ABAP track came from, and with help from Marian and Mark and Mike, give us a bit of an overview of how this particular ABAP track works, and maybe you can give us a bit of a tour, and we'll do an exercise.
And keep it short, right?
Keep it short. We've only got we've got plenty of time. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So I was actually thinking, where did all this start? And from my point of view, it started perhaps back in 2019. With I think we have Gregor in the chat somewhere.
Yes, we do.
And perhaps Hendrik Neumann is also there. But back in 2019, I think those were some of the people that were doing the advent of code in ABAP. Of course, in real systems and such. And I was stupid enough to write on Twitter that, okay, next year, let's do this completely in ABAP, but do it standalone. So that was done in 2020. I did not do all of the advent of code in ABAP offline, but we had one guy from Sweden do all of it in ABAP offline. And doing it offline, there is this Trainspyler / ABAP emulator that we run locally. So that was really the start of making ABAP run locally, right? And then I think sometime in September 2021, so that's around half a year ago, I was randomly watching some people on twitch.tv doing some exercises in some language. Perhaps it was C#, I don't remember. They're doing some exercises in the Exercism homepage, and I was like, this is cool, I get badges, and because there's a lot of cool gamification also on Exercism. And I was thinking, well, why can't we just do ABAP here? So the initial issue for creating the ABAP track was created in September 2021, 5 months ago or so. That's when we started making this track, right? So on the lower level, there is the ABAP emulator running the ABAP code. And it's also important to say here that the ABAP track is not perfect. There's a lot of bugs in the ABAP language as such, but as ABAP developers, we are kind of used to having bugs in code and in language, right?
No, let me just jump in here, because I think this is essential. There's like everyone on this call and who's watching this thinking like, how on earth does this work? And we have to be clear here, there is no SAP system somewhere behind the scenes, right? This is not that the code you put into the website is somehow running on an SAP box in the cloud or something. No, there is nothing there behind this. This is all implemented separately and running with the infrastructure, that Exercism provides, and the emulator that you are talking about. So no SAP system, right?
Exactly. That is the wonderful magic I'm hoping to get into a little bit later on this session. I'm so excited about this deep dive, but yeah.
You can also see this when you try to select from some of the standard database tables or use data elements from the data dictionary. They're not there because this is just the language as such, right? So it's comparable to the Java track, right? It does not learn you how to use Spring Boot. It learns you how to program Java, right? So this is also the scope as such for ABAP. So try the language. Of course, there's a lot of things besides that, and a lot of tooling like the data dictionary and a lot of other artifacts in ABAP, right? But this is getting into this. It's an easy way to get started, right? So we started the track there, and this has really moved out of the ABAP Kids community. So we had some of the people here from the chat, like Maria and Mark and Mike, helping out to take the exercises and build the exercises and find all the bugs and in the emulator. And then over time, we got it running, right? That's the short story. Mark, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, this is like all based on your genius contributions, right? To make this work behind the scenes. But I think it's just a beautiful website, for just a learning environment, and the gamification aspect is just excellent, right? You just get addicted to it. I got to solve another one, so I get another checkbox and maybe a badge here or there. That interested me in this project in the first place, and was happy to contribute some of those exercises to the track. And I while we're talking about this, I certainly encourage others also to look at this. There's actually a complete set of, I think it's 130 or something standard exercises, right, that you can take from the descriptions. You don't have to invent those. They're all already spec'd out. You just have to create the stub for it for the ABAP language, and provide an example implementation that passes all your tests. So contributing to a track is also relatively easy, and we can talk about that in more detail if you want to, but it goes both ways, right? So you're not just learning something, but you can also build exercise yourself and contribute back to the platform, right?
I was just looking at the, as Eric pointed out right at the start, this is, and Eric being the open source person from Exercism. This is all open source. The ABAP track is open source. I had a quick look this morning at the contributors to the ABAP track on github.com, and of course all the folks here that you can see on the live stream. These are all contributors to the ABAP track, but there's also some other folks that are not on here. For example, Katrina from Exercism, and I think I saw Tom Schmelzer as one of the contributors, and somebody who goes by the name of GBack is also there. I don't know their real name, but you don't need to. My name's Q Macro. What can I say? So yeah, there's some wonderful contributors here, and I just want to call out you folks and the rest of them for making this, for getting us to 1,000 participants on this track already, as we saw in the chat. I'm super itching. Sorry, say again, Eric.
Just speaking of the open source contributing part, we have a lot of people that start tracks, but we have a few people that actually finish tracks. And the ABAP track is actually one of our exemplar new tracks. So the way that it was done, I think this was the first time that we really had the documentation properly set up, but they were really, well, they didn't need much help. Only very, very, very little help. So it was really a standout way. This is how you should implement a new track. They read the documentation, they built everything that they should have built, and they built it in a way that was immediately the correct way, which is also really interesting. So a lot of people are really excited to start a track, but few people really have the skills to actually finish it. And this was not only finished, but also finished very soon. So I was really impressed by the technical skills of everybody involved. So.
Brilliant. Well said as well, Eric. Well said. I'm itching to see an ABAP exercise. Can we, there's a fantastic old series here in the UK, Only Fools and Horses, and my favorite phrase is "Let the dog see the rabbit." Can one of you folks share the screen, and let's take a look at some of the ABAP track, and maybe look at what the exercise is and how it feels to be presented with the web browser GUI, the requirements and where you type your code and how that all works at a higher level. Who wants to do that?
I'll take a shot at it. Let's see.
Thank you, Mark.
Share my screen. All right. Can you see it?
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah. So after you log in, this is what you presented with when you go to the ABAP track, right? You see one on the side here. I started a couple others to see what's included there. And actually, for building out the track, I'm most familiar with JavaScript and PHP. So I looked at those first to see how are those exercises implemented. And that basically became templates for me to build out some of the ABAP exercises. So when you're in the track, on your overview, Eric mentioned it briefly with C#. You can see it here with me. I completed already all the exercises, so I can't show you a new one in ABAP. Maybe some of the other guys still have one that's not completed. But you get these little checkboxes. And just going through the screen a little bit, to get a list of how many do we have currently? 24. And for each of them, you get a little, little badges, whether you completed them or not. If you haven't started them, it will tell you the difficulty. So there's some easy ones, some medium ones. I don't think we have really any hard ones yet. So you can decide which ones you want to start with. Typically, you would pick, Hello World.
You could always open one of your exercises to do a new iteration.
Yeah. Okay.
Or take Hello World. So you have to do this again. Click the
have to do this one again
because we changed the Hello World thing.
I'll just explain a little bit of what this looks like, right? So once it's completed, you get the status changed up here, obviously, and I also published my solution, which is another great aspect of this platform. So after you complete it and your solution passes the test, you have the option to share your solution with the rest of the world. Actually others can then browse through the solution. So if you want to see how, whatever DJ solved something, right, you could actually see that if he decides to share it. I'm not sure, maybe one day you'll have some AI to figure out what is the best solution here, right? Get some ratings on other people's solutions to go along with the coding exercises. So in this case, the Hello World, I'll just jump into this. This is the old one. Maybe some of you start a new one. How do I start a new one?
You could update if you'd like. If you scroll a little bit to the top.
Okay.
There's a see what's changed on the right side.
Okay, yeah. See, I was one of the early ones. So let's see if I start this now. No?
No, you already submitted this, so the stub won't change, but the tests have changed now.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I'll have to rewrite that another time. Let me just pick another one that hasn't. Reverse string is an easy one. So when you start an exercise, it's probably going to look something like this. I'll take this out here. You get an empty stub of the required solution. It shows you an ABAP class and typically a few methods that you have to program. We, for the most part, already provide you the input and output parameters for all the methods that you need to code. And then at the bottom, the actual implementation, you just have to fill out. Eric mentioned using a command line interface for Exercism. This is something that for the ABAP track, we don't do yet, maybe. I'll say yet, because maybe in the future we'll get there. So the current way it works is that you really work with this web editor and just complete the code. And I'll have to make a little change here. And then you can run the test. And if all is okay, you'll get a little green. There you go. Right. So if I maybe I show you the other way around, let's just make something that doesn't work. Just run the test again. And then you should see that something fails, right? There you go. There were actually some tests that it passed. You can look at them as well. Yeah, if it was an empty string, obviously the reverse is the same, so it passes it, right? But then there are some others. It will tell you what's the expected values and what your test actually produced. One, I think, of the other fantastic aspects is that you see the complete code of the test cases. So you can learn not just how to program, but you can also see how the tests have been implemented. Now, this is obviously a very simple example that shows some unit tests, like testing for an empty string and so on. But the more complex the exercises get, the more detailed also these test cases are. So you can, as you see, solve the solutions directly in the web interface, but you can, of course, also take these things into your own system. So the way that it's at the very moment, you just create a class with exactly this naming convention that you have on the screen and in your own SAP box or test system, and just cut and paste the empty code into it, and then create a test class corresponding to the part that you see here on the right side. And you can solve the exercise also in your own SAP system. And then if you want to afterwards, just cut and paste the coding back to the left here on the website to submit it on the website. Where this eventually hopefully will go to is that we will have all the exercises that are included in the ABAP track available as an ABAP Git repository, so that then you can download or clone the complete ABAP track into your SAP system, solve things there, and you don't have to go to the back and forth. And maybe we will get to a point where we can submit actually the solutions from the ABAP system back to the Exercism website as well. All right, that's about it, I think.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Mark. I mean, this one here, a reverse string, that was a nice simple example. I mean, what other sorts of exercises do we have on the ABAP track so far? I mean, what maybe does a more involved exercise look like? What's the scope here for? I'm just thinking, people might be wondering, how easy can things be, and how much more challenging and interesting can things be? Maybe you could pick out one and show us a slightly more involved exercise.
Maybe I give it to some of the other guys who are actually implementing some of those exercises. How about you, Mike?
I think you're on mute, Mike.
I put him on the spot here.
Yes, unprepared, right? Okay, I'm there. Right, so let me share the correct screen. Oh. Okie dokie, I should be sharing. No, not yet, not yet. Okay, it's not.
Is it not
Oh,
playing?
sorry, I'm having technical issues. I click share and nothing happens. DJ, do you need to give me access or something?
I think you're already. Let me just check. You are co-host, so it should be okay. Maybe while you're fighting with that, Marian or Lars, would you like to jump in with one just to show us?
Just talk in the meantime. So
yeah.
So I think so in the ABAP world as such, sometimes we talk a lot about unit tests and test-driven development and everything. How to do this? What does a unit test really look like? What can it look like? So this is also a unique example of how to do test-driven development. You don't, or well, you zero effort. You actually get the test cases, and then you just need to do the implementation, right? So if you want to try test-driven development, try this out. It's for free. Anyone can try it out, right? Another cool feature of Exercism is that when you completed an exercise, you can share a solution with the community. So after that, you actually get access to see all the other solutions that has been shared, right? And that always learns you some new features in ABAP. So some approaches, like we saw, there's one very trivial approach, right, Mariam, where the user had not really implemented the logic, but just implemented it to supply to fix the tests. That's also a solution, right? But yeah, perhaps not in the spirit of the exercise itself. But yeah, anyhow, also just stressing out. So also in the ABAP ecosystem, there's a lot of people that has been in the ecosystem for a long time. So we need new people to join and do ABAP to continue maintaining and building SAP systems, right? And this is also a unique opportunity just to dive in, try some ABAP. If you're not familiar with ABAP, you can start very, very easily to get running and do some stuff in the language, and not actually having to download a Docker image or get access to a special system that requires licenses or anything. Okay, Mike, you can share the screen now.
Perfect.
It was a permissions problem, and it had to restart Zoom and all kinds of.
Well done, Mike. That was good. Under pressure, and you came through.
Yeah. This is what we do. We wing it. Right. So yeah, the exercises do go up in complexity, and I think it's worth mentioning also what's really interesting about Exercism is that you've got a set of template exercises. So these are not exercises we've made up, but they exist the same in all the different tracks. So anyone you can start off doing the exercises in a language you're familiar with, and then hop over to another language and do the same exercise in that, and it's really great. It's something I really like the concept. So slightly more complicated one is Minesweeper, complex from a how to implement a point of view. So you've got to implement a mine board where you've got to put the numbers next to each cell. I'm sure we're all familiar with Minesweeper, to put the numbers of how many mines are next to each field. So these are good little logic puzzles and exercises. So again, let's go over here, and there's so basically you get given a board as input, a table of strings with stars where the mines are, and you have to send back a table of strings with the numbers in the right numbers in the right position. And I see some questions on the YouTube this is an older iteration. Sorry, we had a bug. Which version of ABAP is supported? We supported is pretty much everything we find in the latest ABAP help. So I think that's the easiest way to put it. That's what the ABAP emulator tries to support. So it means no data dictionary stuff or fancy classes or things. At the time I did this exercise, the reduce version didn't work, but here you can see a fairly complex reduce statement. So that does work now. But yeah, and if we look at this, oh, it's marked as easy. Actually, it's a bit more complex, but so what's also interesting is that you can, once you have, this is locked on a new exercise, but once you've completed an exercise, you can see community solutions. That means all the other, you can see solutions that other people have published. And this is also a great way to then see how has somebody else done this? How has somebody else implemented this solution? And as I said before, I can then go hop over to another track. And as you can see, I have been way too distracted on the JavaScript track. Let's just see one that we've, okay, let me see, one that I've done in, that we've got in ABAP as well. There we go.
So while you're looking for this, Mike, what you're saying basically is that if you are familiar with another language, some of the puzzles themselves are shared across the different tracks. So you can solve the puzzle mentally and in an approach fashion with the language you're more familiar with, then try in, for example, ABAP.
Exactly. And here is one. So this is an exercise. Let me go to the exercise overview. Published solution. Let's go there. So there is the JavaScript. So this is an exercise that teaches arrays in JavaScript, how to reverse orders and do things, interesting things with arrays. And I am just, there we go. Let me get to the description. There we go. It's a little story. So most of the exercises are presented as little stories. So this is about how to manipulate a stack of cards. And this is about, as you can see here, is JavaScript code. And then I will hop over to ABAP. And then we see the same one. Let me just go over here. Where's Elise? Elise.
In the middle.
There we go.
Yeah.
And here we are also presenting the same thing in ABAP. So it's the same backstory, but here we're presenting this as a how to work with internal table. And again, here we, what are the, this, you know, how do we, there's also a little bit of teaching in, involved in the exercises, that we would show how to do certain things. How do we add value to the top of an internal table in ABAP terms, or an array in ABAP. But it's really useful that it's the same concepts, the same exercises in all the tracks. And when I want to try and refresh my C knowledge from 20 years ago, or even assembler for that matter, I can hop over there. What we don't have in ABAP yet is something we've been talking about, and that's really handy, is a concept, a syllabus. And this is quite a bit of work, but I will show you in JavaScript. So you've got exercises that teach a specific concept, and you can see which ones have been done or not. And once you do an exercise, then it will also show you that you've unlocked further exercises, and which is really nice. So I can see some of these exercises are locked, and this is a kind of directions that we would like to head to with ABAP as well. But as I said, it is one step at a time, baby steps, and we'll get there.
We need a lot of help for that. So, Mike, how can people help if they like to help out with the ABAP track?
That's a good question, and just join in, get involved. We do have a Slack channel, I don't know if somebody can post the link. And what is involved in publishing exercises, there is quite a little bit of background know-how that is needed. So we have, hold on a moment, let me just pop into the right. GitHub. So this is all the exercises are built on GitHub. Or published on GitHub. So very short deep dive into the background. There's a structure to follow, and if we go and look into the exercises, we can see there are documentation. So even if you don't have the skills, the technical skills, there's always, if you want to improve some of the documentation or the stories, one or two of the exercises are maybe a little bit thin because many of them we just copied from another track, and they might have some, let's call them Java-isms in the documentation. So if you see little errors or little small issues, you don't need any technical skills. Just take this and say, oh, I see a spelling mistake, or anything. It can be anything really. Go in, edit it, submit a pull request, and yeah, go for it.
Fantastic. That's great. That's a great overview. Thanks for that, Mike. I mean, the key thing that I took away from that little section is that this is about as much about everybody being able to contribute as everybody being able to actually go through the exercises. And the exercises are there to test your knowledge and to help you practice, but also, as you very nicely pointed out, Mike, there are beautiful examples of how to do things in modern ABAP. You know, how to append an entry to an array, for example. And also, I think we talked about this before, and there was some comment about it in the chat too. You know, all right, I'll speak for myself. You know, ABAP unit, a bit scary for me, but there's got some great examples because, of course, you know, the building blocks of the ABAP track on Exercism, you know, part of that is ABAP unit, right? So the unit tests. I'm just conscious of time. We've got just over 10 minutes left. I would love to put Lars in a really difficult position by asking you to explain a little bit in 5 minutes, or maybe 6 if you're good, about how you gave us a brief taste of how this whole thing works behind the scenes, behind the curtain. You know, there's been discussion in the chat as well, transpilation, sort of lower levels of ABAP 702, for example. Can you give us a brief sort of, you know, hand-wavy idea of how this whole thing works behind the scenes?
Yeah, let me just first answer a question from the chat. So is Rtti supported? No, not as of now, but we have all the classes for Rtti ready. It's just not on Exercism because I don't think the exercise that we have right now does not require Rtti, and I guess there's no real exercise that requires Rtti. So Rtti is also like a reflection in Java, but we can do it. They're there. Like you saw that string table could actually be accessed. That's a data dictionary that we've chosen to include. There's also a few of the exception classes that works, but not a lot because then it just gets very big. So how does it work? Yeah, so it's a long story. And I think, let me just share my screen if I have access. Yeah, I have access. So I think the easiest way to actually see how it works is by seeing it with your eyes, right? So you can go to trainspyler.abaplint.org. So a lot of stuff is happening behind the scenes, and this one actually shows what is happening behind the scenes, right? So over to the left here, I have some ABAP code, so I can do some ABAP code, like creating a variable. I can say do 2 times m2 equals 5. And what actually happens here automatically in the browser again, and this is running standalone in the browser, so you can open this on your iPad or your Chromebook, and this will also run there. So what happens is it takes the ABAP code, builds a syntax tree, taking that syntax tree, translating it into JavaScript code that we have here in the middle. And then there's a runtime behind that. So like the operator add here is part of the runtime. So they can actually run the code that is in here. And actually, when it runs this code, it gets the answer 10, which is hopefully correct if my math adds up. Yeah, that it should 2 times 5, that's 10, yeah. So that's the very short overview, and then it's just getting everything working step by step, day by day, as you say, and adding more and more on top of that. So adding Rtti, it's not in Exercism as such, but if we go into the Rtti rabbit hole, there is a thing called Open ABAP that here we are. If we go into something like the type description. So here is an Rtti class for the ABAP type description that happens to work together with the runtime running in JavaScript. So this way it's very, very cool. Somewhere down here. Here we go. So this is some kind of magic here that actually, so the JavaScript is the kernel, and in these 2 lines there's an evil workaround how to, for this runtime, hook into the runtime. And if you know how to do this and looking up all stuff, then it's just connecting all the dots together like a big puzzle. And that's the cool thing with ABAP, right? It's a big puzzle, and it keeps being a big puzzle. And that's also the fun in ABAP, right? There's always another feature to add, which also means there will always be another bug to add to fix in the ABAP emulator. But luckily, we as developers, we don't use super much of the language as such, so we can get to a state where this works in most cases, right?
Fantastic, fantastic. Thanks, Lars. And in fact, I'm going to read out Tom's chat message because it just reflects what I was thinking as well. I hope everyone appreciates just how crazy dark magic this is. Oh, sorry. And absolutely amazing. I think everybody will remember where they were when they saw live transpilation of ABAP code in the browser to JavaScript. It's just blown my mind. That's absolutely fantastic. Mark, do you say
yeah. I'll put this later on Twitter because I this week took this pretty much to the limit at what it can do. Just a tiny side story. Every morning, my wife does the Wordle puzzle, and I'm struggling as a non-English speaker figuring out the words. So I actually took one of the GitHub repos that somebody developed in an ABAP solution, the Wordle assistant, and I made this work in the Trainspyler. I'll put it on Twitter later.
Definitely.
It's like 1,200 lines of ABAP coding, and it's quite amazing. So this is not gimmicky anymore. This actually runs real ABAP code. Yeah. So it's we can only imagine on where this can go.
Exactly. This is just the start, right? That's what we're all thinking. So, I mean, we're almost at the top of the hour. But before we finish, I'm going to just make sure everybody here, we've got so many people in the chat, and I'm sure people seeing this for the first time. How does one get started? Maybe taking their first step with the first exercise. Who wants to just give a brief overview of what to do? I think Eric, you covered a little bit at the start in your overview, but yeah, how do people get started?
Well, I'll take a shot at it. Just go to the website, exercism.org or .io, same thing. get a user, sign up, and that enables you to do any of the exercises on the website. It's free, which is the most beautiful thing about this whole thing, I think. And just head straight to the ABAP track and pick the Hello World exercise. With that one, it's very simple. You get the editor and just type in some ABAP code, run the unit tests that go along with it. And that's basically it. You'll be able to submit exercises, and once you've done it with one little one like Hello World, you're off to the races, and you can spend a few hours to solve the 24 exercises that we have already on the website.
Fantastic. That's a great summary. Thanks, Mark. And as I think Eric pointed out before, you can either create a user ID on Exercism, or if you've already got a GitHub user, you can use OAuth to sort of authenticate via the GitHub button. Fantastic. So before we finish, does anybody else have anything to add or contribute, or any call outs or anything?
If one small comment on this, we were discussing early on how people can contribute, and I wanted to mention again the mentoring part it's another great feature, as we've already discussed. Anyone can chip in. So once you've signed up, you just need, as long as you've done the Hello World exercise, you can sign up and say, right, I'll mentor. And all that is really about is answering questions from people who have done an exercise. There has been some technical issue requests in the mentoring. Mentoring is actually for program related, so the development language related questions, and answers technical issues raised at GitHub. But yeah, it's a really good way also to get involved, and it's a great way to teach, to learn. To teach is to learn.
Exactly.
So that anyone can do that.
Yeah. So I've also been a mentor, and I think I've learned more than I helped other people learn. So there's always students that come up with solutions that you'd never have thought of yourself. And you're under no obligation to do X mentoring sessions a day or a week. You can choose whatever you like. If you have one week where you do a bit more and 1 week where you do a bit less, it's all fine.
I could show, we've even got some mentoring requests on the ABAP. If we got time, I could show it quickly.
If it's just a minute or so, we can do that, sure.
And there is also, and I think by default it does not, it doesn't enable you to comment on people's code. If you do publish your solution, you'd have to sorry, I'm multitasking, sharing screen. There we go, share. If you do publish a solution, you have to enable comments. But here, if once you've registered as a mentor, then you can always go into your track, and you can see there's a queue. So the queue is really about people who have asked questions, and then you can go in and you can see their solution, and they would have questions.
I think you're sharing maybe the wrong screen.
Oh, crikey. All right. Am I sharing the wrong screen? Let's try this again. Desktop 2, there we go. There's a small lag when you click on things.
That's it, we got it, perfect.
Right, let's close this back. Sorry about that. So when you look at mentoring, once you've registered as a mentor, then you can see a queue in your track. So anyone that publishes a solution can request mentoring, and that's really saying anyone. And there I can see their solution, and this is probably not the best example. Sometimes people have more specific questions, and you can start a dialogue with that person and just answer their question. So it's a really simple thing. You can spend 5 or 10 minutes, but that's already helping people to get on with things. So that's really what I wanted to show. Some people, actually, maybe that's a question for Eric. When you go into, when you look at community solutions, so you can, as I've shown before, you can look at other solutions, and by default it's disabled, but you can also write comments on other people's solution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike.
Short intro on the mentoring side.
Yeah, that was great. No, that's super important. We're just about to close out. I want to give the final microphone to Lars. I think you've got one more point, right?
Yeah, so to all of viewers out there, this will be whatever the community makes it into, right? And you're all part of the community, working inside SAP, outside SAP, with ABAP, in another language. Take part, contribute. If you find issues, make some issues, find some solutions, write a blog post that this is a cool solution, add solutions, open issues, comment on Twitter, try some of the other tracks. It is what we all make it to be, right?
Fantastic. What a brilliant way to end. Some great comments here. I'd love to read them all out, but we don't have time. So thank you all so much for joining, and thank you folks for building this, for making this happen for the community. But this is a community thing, so get involved, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody.